Okay, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority Board of Directors. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll and establish a quorum?
Good afternoon. Directors Dickinson. Guerra.
Guerra. Here.
You.
Gotta say it right. Here.
Kent.
Here.
Kelsey Nelson.
Here.
Raythel.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Singallen.
Here.
Spees.
Here.
Talamantes.
Here.
Chair Cerna.
Here.
And I'll make a note for the record that Director Vang is walking in, and we do have a quorum.
Great. If you can please read our statement.
This meeting of the Sacramento Transportation Authority is live and recorded with closed captioning. It is cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel, on the Comcast and DirecTV Uverse cable systems. It is also live streamed at metro14live.saccounty.gov. Today's meeting replays Sunday, September 14th at 2:00 p.m. on Metro Cable Channel 14. Once posted, the recording of this meeting can be viewed on demand at youtube.com/metrocable14. To make an in-person public comment, please complete a speaker request form and hand it to the clerk. The chairperson will call your name when it's your turn to make a comment. You may also send written comments by email to boardclerk@saccounty.gov. Your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Busey, will you please do us the honor of leading us in today's pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Thank you very much. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's STA Authority Board meeting. We have a full agenda. And again, as a reminder, we certainly welcome members of the public to address the Authority Board on any matters on our published agenda and matters not on our agenda. We ask that you please keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. That way everyone who wishes to address the Authority Board has that opportunity to do so. So with that, Madam Clerk, our first item.
Our first item is comments from the public regarding matters not on the agenda.
Okay, I am not in receipt of any speaker slips. So I assume we do not have anyone that wants to address us on matters not on the agenda.
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Next item, please.
The next item is our consent matters, items 2 through 8. And if I could have Director Vang, if you could log into the system so that we could take a vote in the system. Perfect. So just the consent matters 2 through 8, Chair.
All right. Any Authority Board member wish to pull an item for separate consideration or comment or vote? Yes. Director Dickinson.
Thanks. I have a couple questions on item 4, so I don't know if you want to take it off consent or just ask the questions and still handle it.
Why don't we just go ahead and have the clerk read item 4, and you can ask your questions, and we'll consider the totality of consent.
Sounds good.
Item number 4 is to receive and file a contract with Lucas Public Affairs for community listening session on transportation.
Thanks. I had just a couple questions about it. One has to do with the stakeholder survey, and I was a little unclear exactly who are the respondents to that, because in the description of the scope, it talks about an online survey of stakeholders and community representatives throughout the region, but then in the same paragraph, it talks about collecting data, high-level data from a targeted audience. So does anybody here have, who is the target? How does the stakeholder survey tend to work?
I think you just defined the target audience being those stakeholders that are stakeholders, community leaders. We're trying to create a short list. I have a draft short list. It's got like 175 different people on that list. We're just going to ask them a series of, I think, six basic questions about transportation needs.
Okay, so it's not a survey of the public generally. It's a by invitation request.
Yeah, we have to email. It's an email survey through like SurveyMonkey, either SurveyMonkey or through Microsoft Forms. So right now it's like 175 people.
I'm sorry, how many?
175?
Oh, okay. I just didn't, if we're going to do some polling, I didn't want to have a duplication or a conflict if we're going to do potentially widespread polling in addition. Okay, so it's, okay, that's helpful. And then I assume the schedule's getting adjusted. My other question was just about schedule, because the schedule talks about doing work in August. We're obviously past August. Does it push the end date into December, or are you still expecting the end date to be in November of this work?
I think, so this is a receive and file for a contract we executed in August. We've already started some work on it. I think there are some key decisions there's some key information that we're waiting on as it relates to some of the timing. And so I've already talked to the consultant about, potentially extending the schedule out a little more. But right now we're waiting on some key things. One is Assembly Bill 1223 going to get signed by the governor, right, which gives us the ability to do a sales tax measure. And the second is the actual survey of likely voters that we're doing. Where are the results of that going to be? And it may dictate kind of our path forward and some timing. So we do have the opportunity to sort of extend this out a little bit. You'll notice that the contract term is well beyond the actual, I think it goes through March, so we have a little flexibility built into the contract if we need to push some things out. Does that help?
Well, it does to a certain extent. I mean, the governor has until the middle of October to sign legislation. So that would be a significant impact if you're waiting on that potentially, a significant impact to the schedule potentially, but also if we were still of any mind that we would entertain a June placement of a measure as opposed to November, the later you go, the less likely that becomes in terms of feasibility. So I was just trying to understand what your thinking is along with the consultant in terms of timing.
Yeah, I think generally, the idea of this was just to really get an understanding from the stakeholders, right, who are very interested in transportation, as well as the community, where, what's their feeling on unmet needs for transportation, as well as to maybe educate them on how their current Measure A dollars are being used, and then to use that information to inform what the subcommittee does, or their recommendations that would ultimately come back to the full STA governing board. And so this was really intended to try to provide that additional input from the community. And I think we were looking at a November timeframe for something coming back from that subcommittee.
Yeah.
And but as I said, I think there's a few things that we need to better understand in order to move forward with a recommendation in November. So I anticipate the next subcommittee meeting that the topic of the timing of this will be something we definitely talk about.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, if I could request for the next board meeting, if you could just give us an update on schedule for the completion of the work under this contract, I think that would be helpful for all of us to understand.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll go ahead and move consent for approval.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I don't have any speaker slips for consent matters, so I assume we don't have any speakers.
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Looking for a vote for Member Vang. And that item does pass unanimously with those members present.
All right, very good. Next item, please.
Item number 9 is to receive a presentation regarding coordination of state transportation improvement program and the results of the 4-county state funding program.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair, board members. I'm going to present on item 9, which is coordination of the STIP funding and the results of the 4-county state funding program, which actually programs those STIP dollars. Just to give you a little context here. So historically, SACOG has done what's called the regional funding round, where they combined federal and state dollars into a large pot of funds, usually several $100 million in funds. and every 2 years they would do a call for projects, and projects across the 4-county or the region would have to compete against each other. And one of the challenges with this approach is really that it creates some uncertainty, right? And if you're trying to plan for a project and get that project delivered, and you're really unsure if you're going to get funding through this program, it can be challenging. And then from cycle to cycle, there are different results, and even you submitting the same project you did last time may not get funding. So it just creates a variety of challenges. And then oftentimes even between cycles, they change the criteria too. So it's really a challenge if you're trying to deliver a project that's important to your particular jurisdiction. And that's kind of the premise behind what we're going to talk about here. So luckily, through some advocacy at the staff and the board level advocacy, we were able to get a change done on the state side. And so what that state change did is, instead of pooling all of the county shares of STIP dollars or state dollars together into one big pot, and all of our agencies competing against each other for those funds, we asked SACOG to say, hey, how about you keep the county shares of funding all together, right? So we can ensure that all the funding that's for Sacramento County goes to projects within Sacramento County. And we got them to make that change. 90% of the funds stay within the county, 10% of the funds are pooled together. So the region essentially is competing against each other for that smaller pot. So that meant that there was $28.4 million available for projects in Sacramento County, which is, I think, a good thing. And that made sure that those funds weren't going to other counties, stayed within our county. And so what this board did in March and April was we introduced the concept of an MOU. And generally that is, hey, we have $28.4 million. If we can all agree upon how those funds are allocated, instead of competing against each other, we'll just apply for our specific share that we've agreed to. And as long as we've submitted projects that meet the competitive criteria and meet the minimum scoring threshold, we should get those funds. And so what that did is it provided a lot of certainty for your agencies to actually know exactly how much they were going to get out of a funding round, keep in mind they still have to submit competitive projects. Now we had to set aside for transit and rail so we could make sure we had funds for them. And then there were sub-allocations for each geography, right? So we know City of Sacramento knew exactly how much money they were allocated for their projects, unincorporated county the same, Rancho Cordova, Folsom, across the board. And the way that we address this is through a memorandum of understanding. Going to this next slide. So with that MOU in place, I just want to talk about how the results went, right? So there was $28.4 million available. So we used this MOU. SDA sort of was the coordinator of this, kept things organized. We used those formula allocations, and then each of your agencies identified the project that aligned with the dollar amount and the guidelines SACOG developed, and then put applications together. And we had flexibility within MOU as well, depending upon if you had a project ready or you needed more funding, which I'm going to give you a couple examples of how that worked in a couple slides from here. And then we weren't all competing against each other. That was one of the other great things, so we could actually support each other, and I'll give you an example of that. And so ultimately, of that $28.4 million, $28 million was awarded. We had one project that didn't meet the minimum scoring threshold. So some key takeaways from this before I get into the actual awards. So SACOG enabled the policy change, which allowed us to really maximize the benefit of this, right? Create that certainty for projects to get delivered. SDA worked to maximize the benefits of that, but through its coordination, ensuring that we were meeting every 2 weeks with all the agencies, making sure their applications were getting in on time, and there were changes that needed to be made between the draft and the final application. Those changes were being made. And I think ultimately we built a lot of trust across the agencies. And this is going to be this MOU is actually going to apply to multiple rounds, so we'll be able to do hopefully an even better job the next round and have more certainty. So these are the awards for everyone. This is $28 million in awards, and I want to highlight a couple of projects specifically. The first one being the $1.2 million award for the City of Folsom. So they had a really good project, but the challenge with the City of Folsom's project was that it wasn't an existing trail, and so there wasn't a lot of data that supported the need for the trail, right? And that's really hard when you're trying to show, hey, this trail is needed. And so what I did is I asked the City of Rancho Cordova and the County of Sacramento, hey, can you review the City of Folsom's application and provide them with any feedback to improve their applications? Because I know this is a good project, it's just hard to document the need for it. And so we were able to get some really good comments from those agencies to improve that application and meet the minimum scoring threshold, and that allowed the City of Folsom to get that $1.2 million award. The second example I'll give you is the City of Sacramento's Marysville Boulevard Vision Zero project. So the City of Sacramento share of funding was only like $6 million. But there was a couple of cities here, which you'll see there's some cities missing, that either needed more money for their project or had a project that they're waiting to submit maybe in a future round. And so instead of letting their funds roll over to the next round and be unused and left on the table, City of Sacramento said, hey, why don't you give us your funding and we'll advance our project at a much larger amount, and we'll give you your money back the next round. That way, you'll still get your money, but we can actually not leave any money on the table, and we'll use that. And so that allowed the City of Sacramento to get a $9.1 million award. A couple other things I'll point out to this too is typically, agencies are submitting multiple applications hoping one of these will win. And so this limited the amount of work agencies actually had to do. Typically awards are in the $4 million range. And so you'll see there's 3 projects over that $4 million range. That's because we weren't all trying to, you could actually be a little more strategic and put it all in one project, which because of that certainty, which I think was a good thing. And then if you look at this at a regional level, Sacramento County is the only county that actually put together this MOU. We're the only agency this coordinated and this organized to do this. So Yolo County couldn't get all their agencies to agree, and it fell apart on them, and they left a lot of money on the table. A couple of other counties were trying to do an informal agreement, but they weren't really that well organized or coordinated, and so they had very mixed results. So I think from that standpoint, we did incredibly well on this funding round. I just hope to continue that to the next round. So with that, open any questions.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Any questions for our director? Director Talamantes.
No questions, but just want to commend you and all the public works directors from all the local agencies on working together to be able to achieve more and reach for more money as an agency. So just kudos to you and the team, and looking forward to the next round.
Great, thank you. All right, seeing as there's no more questions from directors, I don't have any speaker slips on this matter. So this was just a report back, correct? We have no action to take?
That is correct.
All right, then we'll go on to item 10. And I do have so far 2 speakers signed up to address the board at the appropriate time. So I'll put that on the record so people who wish to address us can do so. However, we are going to get a staff presentation, I believe, first.
That is correct. So item number 10 is to receive a presentation from the Sac Moose Coalition on principles to consider for future ballot measures.
All right, wonderful. I'm just going to quickly introduce the speakers here, but want to highlight just a couple of things. We talked about item 4 and that contract, right? And so I think, showing that the board is willing to listen to the community and the stakeholders specifically on what are their interests in a sales tax measure is very important. I think having this item is actually a very important item to have. I will say another thing about Sac Moves, which is different from a lot of other organizations, is they are a coalition, and they'll talk about this too. But they have I believe over 25 organizations that are part of this, and they've been actively engaged in pretty much every measure that I've been involved in. Probably over 10 years, at least at this point. So I think it's a really nice to have them do this. I think the other challenge, SCA is a very small agency as well. And so having a coalition members who all work together and agree upon what they want and doing all that work for us is a very important thing. So with that introduction, I'm going to introduce Dan Allison and Deb Banks, who are going to make this presentation.
All right, very good.
Come on up.
The Dan and Deb show.
If y'all were waiting for me, I was stuck in traffic.
Ironic.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Dan Allison, and in the coalition, I represent Sacramento Transit Advocates and Riders.
I'm Deb Banks, Executive Director of Sacramento Area Bicycle Advocates, and that's who I bring to the Sac Moves Coalition. The two of us have been the leadership of the coalition for the last 2.5 years. Yeah, that's why we're here.
So the coalition has about 25 organizations in it, and some of them are environmental interests, some transportation, some housing, some equity. There are a lot of different organizations in the coalition for different purposes, but we came together in an effort to try to improve ballot measures or sales tax funding for transportation. We also have a lot of individual participants that join us in our meetings and are welcome to talk. When we need to make a decision, it's the organizational members. We started in about 2014, working towards the 2016 Measure B ballot measure.
All right, so we're going to walk through a framework that we have, and it'll be the tag team. I'm going to offer up the issue, and then Dan's going to talk about the policy and the benefits. And we're going to start with something that is near and dear to everybody's hearts, fix it first. We believe that everybody wants streets and sidewalks that are walkable and rollable without potholes, et cetera. And that if we have fix it first and we spend time maintaining what we have, it's going to be a lot safer for everybody who uses our roads.
Policy and benefits. Our priorities are fix it first, or which is also often referred to as state of good repair. You have heard both terms, and we believe it's critical in transportation funding to do that. Secondly, we would like to see performance measures, not just for pavement condition index, PCI, which has always been part of the measures, but also sidewalk conditions. We believe that people walking deserve the same level of recognition.
Next up is mode choice, something near and dear to my heart. As a bicycle agency, we're always trying to get more people to leave their cars at home and choose other ways to get around. Past investments have, by and large, favored cars. That's been in street design, et cetera, with large, long boulevards, et cetera. And we know that walking and cycling and transit are lower-cost alternatives and can do the job just as well. We'd like to reduce car reliance by offering effective alternatives.
So we want all modes to be in the measure. We don't want to neglect any modes. We want them all to be in there. And we'll come in some later slides to the balance of those things. And we believe that complete streets policies, not just adopted, but actually implemented in the design of projects, are a key thing for accomplishing this. The implementation and the design of the projects, complete streets, accommodate all modes, and that's what we're aiming for.
Next up, we believe in transit. We have strong support for transit. We believe that it needs to be reliable, safe, consistent, and affordable, frequent, all the good things. And transit, we know, reduces congestion, and not just for non-riders. If you have a bus full of 60 people, that's possibly 40 to 60 cars that are off the streets. So that makes it better for everybody.
So we want to see an emphasis on better bus service and not just big projects. The listening sessions that SAC-RT recently did indicated again and again in different communities that they went to that the thing that people most wanted was better bus service. And so we think that's what should be emphasized. We need to remove infrastructure barriers. There are places where there are sidewalk gaps or bicycle facility gaps leading to bus stops and light rail stations. Those should be fixed. We would like to see investment in safe routes to transit, and that's also a strong initiative with SAC-RT that they want to see the same thing and are starting that up, but it needs funding. We support free passes for K-12 students, and I know many of you sit on other boards that have addressed this issue before. We want to see that continue, and we would also like to see fair discounts for disabled seniors and low-income riders. So far, only the SAC-RT Flex program has a discount for low income, but we believe that with funding that can be extended to the other services that the transit agency offers.
Okay, freeway expansion. We know that it induces travel and it erases some of the benefits that we've just been talking about. And the thing about expansion is that it not just makes it harder for us to get around, but it makes it so that more people that are traveling through the county use it, meaning folks that are going up to Lake Tahoe and or into other areas. They're moving through the county versus stopping and staying in the county. So we believe that freeway expansion induces travel and reduces all the benefits that we actually really believe in.
We believe instead that the funding should go to maintaining existing things. Every time we expand a freeway, that's actually a liability because we then have to maintain it. And if we keep expanding freeways and roadways, but not allocating sufficient money to maintain them, we dig ourselves a hole that will be very hard to get out of. And that's part of the reason for not wanting freeway expansions. We need to spend our money on other things.
Yeah.
We believe that most of the funds raised within Sacramento County through a sales tax or any other taxation method should stay mostly within the county, serving county needs. Now, obviously, that's not a across the board always kind of thing, but we believe that money that comes from the citizens here should serve the citizens here.
Okay, System Zero, this is near and dear to my heart. County and cities have a very high fatality rate, severe injuries compared to others in the state. Thank you so much. I was just looking at some of the statistics. Sacramento follows Los Angeles as the worst state as the worst city in the state for fatalities and serious injuries. That absolutely is unacceptable and has to change. We've got to turn that around.
So how do we turn that around? We need to invest to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries. We have not always done that in the past, and we think it's very important, and a significant amount of the available investment needs to go to that. Safety standards need to apply to all modes. It's not just safety for bicyclists or safety for car drivers. It's all modes. We need to raise our bar for safe travel for all modes. We need to establish performance goals for safety so that we see how we're doing on achieving what we want to. How close are we coming to Vision Zero? How well is our approach to safe systems working? And we need to allocate money to safety plans and their implementation. It's often hard for entities to get funding for the planning for safety, and this is something that a county-wide measure could do, is provide some of that funding to create those plans and then implement them.
Let me just add for just a second about this. I sit on the city's Active Transportation Commission. I ask all the time when we are presented with new road designs and projects that are happening, what is being written in for evaluation of these? How do we know that if we change this road and we spend all this time and millions of dollars to make this road safer, how do we know it actually is going to be safer? And the city, I'm just speaking for City of Sac, always tells me, the engineers, et cetera, is that we can't put in money for evaluation. It's not built into the grant procedures. That's a real problem, because how do we know that we're actually getting to the goals that we want to get to? We're trying to get to that point here. Okay, moving on. Infill and economic
Can I
development.
interrupt real quick?
Sure.
So before you move on, if you can you go back to the previous slide, please? Thank you. I'm really very glad that this is part of the agenda for SAC Moves. As someone that intentionally walks 250 to 300 miles a month, mostly in North Natomas, but somewhat frequently also here in downtown and midtown Sacramento, East Sacramento. What I've encountered as an intentional pedestrian trying to get his mileage in is that I see, quite frankly, I see more conflicts, safety concerns as it relates to pedestrians and people on electric scooters, on one wheels. Electric bikes nowadays are hitting 30, 35 miles an hour in some cases, very fast, and I see them on sidewalks. I've had to dodge them myself. I've had people yelling at me that they have the right of way when they clearly don't.
Right.
So what I didn't hear in your reference to safety, and again, kind of the graphic it seems primarily dedicated to making sure that we set policies and apply resources to minimize the conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians. What part of your agenda, if any, is really kind of scrutinizing or paying close attention to kind of the growing popularity of these very fast-moving electric alternative modes of transportation and pedestrians?
Well, I'll take a stab at it. We haven't talked a lot about it in SAC Moves recently. However, we do know that the growth of e-bikes, e-scooters, bike share, all sorts of alternative modes that are typically found on sidewalks instead of in the street where some of them should be, is just because people aren't feeling safe. We're all in on education, building awareness, and then enforcement to the extent that we can, and that we can find some enforcement mechanisms that will actually do the job. That's a whole different piece of the puzzle, but for sure, we believe in the safe systems approach regarding anybody, everybody on the road, on the sidewalk. We just want people to get safely from point A to point B, no matter how they're doing it.
No, I'm glad to hear that. I would just hope that we all, not just SAC Moves, but we all think carefully about how we manage, again, kind of the growing interest by a lot of folks, not just young people that are doing the one wheels, but I've seen people of my age that are out on electric scooters going full speed ahead in their, in their suits and ties, going to meetings, presumably, that just don't seem to be paying a lot of attention. And I've heard some horror stories too about folks that become very susceptible to injury because they're doing exactly that. So just wanted to interject while you moved on from the safety slide to point that out and hopefully stress that that's something that will be of growing interest to SAC Moves.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I will say that there are other locations, some of which I visit, that have much worse problems than we do. There are people riding modified electric bikes that go 45 miles an hour. It's illegal to do that, but there isn't any enforcement. Some of these issues can be solved at the state level, some at the county or individual city levels, and some can only be addressed through education. And yes, we support addressing those.
Good.
All right, let's move on. Infill and economic development, it's something that's really important, and we've been spending a lot of time on infill these days, which is great. In the past, transportation investments haven't always promoted economic vibrancy and livable places. Sometimes investments have been way off, not where people are living and where they're needed, in the idea that we would fill and get to where those transportation places exist. We think that needs to shift a little bit. We know that multimodal corridors best support local businesses. We want people to stop and walk in and spend some time and spend some money in their local businesses. And that means we want transportation to be close in as well so that people can access it.
So Deb covered, we want things to be aligned with infill. We believe that there's an important way in which transportation investment can make places more successful. And a lot of people say, well, how do you make a place successful? And I'm fortunate to live in the central city And my answer is make places more like the central city. It's a place with a lot of residences, a lot of businesses, not very many high-speed arterial streets. It's a place that's livable and it's economically vibrant. During the economic downturn, Midtown was the place that really got through with no major problems because that was the form of the place. And I will say that the diagram there that's an illustration is from a Citrus Heights report about how they wanted to create infill and economic vibrancy in the city of Citrus Heights. We have a lot of aging corridors, places where businesses may still exist, but they're not doing well. They're not multimodal. By investing in those places, we can make them economically productive. And we understand that the Transportation Authority is transportation, and its job is not housing, it's not creating infill, but there are many things the authority can do to support infill.
Yeah, it's a byproduct. It becomes a byproduct. Yeah. Last, I think this is our last slide. We're talking about equity. We believe that transportation investments have often missed low-income communities, and that as a result of that, those communities are less livable and have more problems with safety, especially in areas where freeways have gone through, and we all know about redlining and that freeways that have displaced families and communities and that are now living near higher areas of pollution, et cetera, as a result of new freeways. So we want to try to change that score and even it by making sure that our communities that have been overlooked in the past get some love.
And to do so, we will need to direct some of the funding towards those places that have been neglected in the past or where we created transportation facilities that don't work very well for that community. By reducing car use, offering multimodal travel, we can save low-income people the expense of having a motor vehicle. They can get around by other methods. And having worked with a lot of low-income communities when I was a Safe Routes to School coordinator, it's not simply the expense of buying a car. Most people can make that. What happens, though, is that car breaks down and they don't have the money to fix it, and they are stuck. They thought the car was the solution to their transportation needs. It turned out not to be. And we want to give those people a choice. They can get around by some other method. We're very aware of the convenience of cars. We don't miss that at all. But for some people, other modes work better. And we need to make sure that funds are evenly distributed throughout the county. Mr. Busey just talked about a situation where there was sort of a funding trade-off where one entity wanted to proceed with an expensive project and others said, we'll wait until the next round. And so it won't necessarily be at every given moment that the funding is geographically equal, but over time it should be. And that's the end of our presentation.
Yeah.
If you have questions for us, we will do our best to answer. You should understand that just as you are just starting into this process of considering a funding measure, so are we starting into the process of more clearly defining what we want. And we often get asked, well, what do you think about that project? And in general, our answer is what we want is policies that will make sure all the projects are good, and we don't generally get involved in being for or against a particular project. What we want is good policies, good performance measures. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Deb. Before we get to comments from directors, I just want to get some clarity. So is it appropriate then to think of SAC Moves as a umbrella organization for other local transit or active transportation groups? Is that appropriate characterization?
We certainly include those, but We also include other interests. There are some education organizations, equity organizations,
Health
housing in
organizations.
particular.
And health.
And
It's always been housing has always been a strong voice in our organization.
Okay, very good. And then is SAC Moves its own nonprofit?
No, it's just a group of people that
Okay.
come together under the auspices of same thinking, same framework, and same values.
So you don't have any tax code restrictions on political activity, anything like that?
Nope.
Okay, very good. All right, we will get to director comments. We'll start with Director Kent.
Thank you. You have many laudable goals that you've expressed here, including transportation made available and affordable to all within a community, multimodal, low risk, in other words, high safety. My question comes from your reluctance to support new freeway expansion, in that tracking general economic growth within a county is important so that you'll have funding for these services. So the freeways are also used for many different types of routes, as we well know, for transport, freight, commuting. That's the incentive behind high occupancy vehicle lanes. So how do you balance what is required to fund in a general way the economics of a county and also not necessarily discourage travel within the county, which has an economic impact?
Part of the answer is that if a freeway is meeting regional or statewide needs, it should be funded at a regional or statewide level, not by the county. Sacramento County doesn't need to do favors for the other counties in the region. They're an equal partner, and certainly there are projects that may be of benefit to the region or to the state, but we feel that when that is the case, the funding should come from the region or the state.
All right, thank you. Director Rodriguez.
So I'm going to sound like a negative Nelly here, but I don't mean to be. I'm a transit user. When I get a chance, oftentimes I look at my calendar and I think, oh, great, no off-site meetings. That means I can take light rail to work. I'm a big supporter of the light rail system, and having now been a policymaker for 5.5 years and approving developments, one thing that is missing in many of these projects is the ability to implement either some kind of a bus system into these neighborhoods. So we continue to grow, and Sacramento continues to, expand and sprawl out, and we continue to make neighborhoods that are very car dependent. And so if we don't invest into our highway system, freeway systems, and create opportunities to get congestion out of certain areas, then that will make it worse. But I think Sacramento has gotten a little too far too big, that people are car dependent. If a youngster wants to go to the mall, the only way to get to the mall is through driving their car, because sometimes the roads don't have the ability to have bikes on them, or certain areas have better trail systems that can. But in our society and in our culture, we haven't really created that. And so, I like everything that you said. I grew up in a city where you didn't have to have a car, but if you had a car, great. The transit system was phenomenal. If I wanted to get from one city to another city, I knew that I can get on the Muni, I can get on BART, I can do whatever I can to get around. But the Sacramento region isn't really supportive of that kind of a lifestyle. And so as much as I do support it, I just don't know how realistic it is. And I am a big fan of infill. I think infill is a great way to take certain areas and create housing. I'm a big supporter of housing, and infill is a great way to do that. But in terms of transit, I on a realistic level, I don't know if Sacramento has gotten too big to be able to implement that. I am also a big fan of the BRT, getting bus systems into areas. But when you look at, I live in the city of Folsom, and we have 2 high schools that are highly impacted by transportation in the mornings and in the afternoons. And I've always said a great way to reduce that is can we get bus systems into the neighborhoods to get some of these kids into the buses? And I'll tell you, it's interesting how much pushback that has and for communities, because we've made communities dependent on vehicles. That's it. I just wanted to share my thoughts on that.
No, thank you so much. I mean, this is where we are wanting to really push on transit. It has not gotten the love, to use my terminology, also to be able to get into the places that it needs to get so that we have a thriving community that you just described. I think you're probably in the Bay Area.
San Francisco.
San Francisco. There are cities all over the United States and the world that are much more transit friendly, and that with a solid transit system, we could have those kinds of walkable cities and cities that kids can take the bus and easily get off and get to school, et cetera. And then their families might not feel so like they need to put their child in their car as the only safe way to get them to school. Because there are lots of kids all over the United States that go to school by bike or walk or by transit.
Yeah.
We would love to see that in Sacramento.
It's interesting, some of the feedback that I get when I think, well, it would be great to get a bus system. Like, let's talk about the high schools. It'd be great to get a bus system that can get people around. And then I hear comments like, well, no, because what it's going to do is it's going to bring all the homeless into our neighborhood. So there's all these negative connotation when it comes to transit and how it would impact a community. So, but thank you for the presentation. This is informative. I support a lot of the efforts that you are in your efforts.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for your comment. One thing I wanted to add is we're talking about a potentially 40-year investment. And if we say, well, things aren't working now, so we won't invest anymore in what's not working, we will be in the same place 40 years from now. We want to shift our investments so that we are in a good place.
Director Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I am curious on the realistic point of view as well. As leaders in this space of transit, what does your commute look like personally? What percentage of the time do you use your cars? And with your goals that you have for more transit options, how do you anticipate that changing?
Do you want to start?
I'm car free. Number one, I walk. Number two, I bicycle. Number three, I use transit. When I go to the Bay Area, I use transit a lot more because there's a better transit system there. I admit it. Again, it goes back to we believe people should have a choice. I'm one of those people who does not drive, rarely accepts rides. So that works for me. We realize it doesn't work for everybody.
I own a car. I drove it here today because I was dressed up, and this is hard on in a bicycle. It'll get caught in the spokes. However, and I live about 7 miles away on the other side of the Guy West Bridge, in East, well, it's not East Sac anymore. I ride my bike to the office, which is just down the street, 3 times a week. And it's usually I have an e-bike assist. So it's about 7-8 miles. It's delightful. I do have a vehicle. I put less than 5,000 miles on it a year. It sits a lot, which I kind of think I should get rid of it. But for special needs, I still use it. I rarely use transit because my commutes are just pretty easy by bike. I will also be really honest. My partner and I own a very old vintage car. It's over 40 years old, which we drive every once in a while, and we own a van. And when we want to get out of town and go camping, we typically take the van. So full disclosure, I am a car family, but I personally spend very little time in them.
If I were to characterize the people in Sac Moves, I would say that most of them are car light. They have cars They use their cars, but they don't use them a lot.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Very good. Mayor Singh-Allen.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, very thoughtful. I think some of the questions you heard from my colleagues, for those of us that live in the surrounding communities, where some of the goals identified aren't practical, right? So for Folsom, for Citrus Heights, for the city of Elk Grove, it would be nice to walk, bike, for all of our needs, but it's just, I think a lot of the focus that you've done a great job at and advocacy for is around the urban core. But for a lot of us, this is great information as we look at a future potential ballot measure of how to incorporate all of these ideas, but there will still be a realistic disconnect between the city, and particularly the downtown needs, the surrounding cities, and then all of our other, the cities that surround the city of Sacramento. So for me, what I'm really looking forward to seeing as we develop these conversations is how are we going to bring that together into something that we can all perhaps support. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we are going to have a significant disconnect. Mm-hmm. And our priorities may not be aligned with your priorities. And that's just the reality. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to be offensive to that, but I also want to be realistic of the needs of Folsom, the city of Elk Grove, Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova are not going to necessarily be aligned with SAC moves and all of your goals. But I appreciate the work that you are doing, and I think it is important work. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from directors? I see Director Dickinson wishing to speak.
I too appreciate the work in the presentation today. I do think that we often underestimate both the appetite and the extent to which we can move in different direction from a transportation standpoint and, frankly, a development and growth standpoint, wherever we are in this county. This is not an all or nothing proposition. This is, I think, as has been noted, a question of choice and a question of real viable alternatives. I think it's not unfair or unrealistic to say that in any one of our communities and neighborhoods, whether we're within a more dense, more urban environment or a more suburban environment, there are trips that lend themselves to walking, to biking, to modes of transportation other than getting in a car, if we make those modes and those choices realistic and practical, and if we plan and develop our communities in a way that accommodates those choices. The truth of the matter is, historically in Sacramento County, outside of the urban core, we haven't done a very good job of that in the way we have developed. And so we find ourselves today, and some of us sitting here are responsible for some of those decisions, frankly, but we find ourselves in a posture where we now have to try to accommodate with the funding that we can develop a pivot in the way that we transport ourselves and the others in the community transport themselves, because there are any number of compelling reasons that demand it. Among them are climate, among them are congestion, among them are feasibility, among them are personal economics. So I think the essence of what I draw from the presentation is not so much the particulars of support for transit or support for biking or things of that kind, but more how it's incumbent on us to think about how we will be required to move in a different direction sooner or later. And the sooner we do it, and frankly, it's no longer sooner, but the sooner we do it, the better off we will position those in our own time, and especially those who come after us, to have a vibrant, vital, sustainable county and region.
Excuse me, Director Vang.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add to Chair Member Dickinson. I just want to take this moment to just thank you for your presentation. I echo all my colleagues. Really appreciate the work that you've done to get us to this moment. I think my understanding is that we've tried almost 3 times at this ballot measure and we have failed. And for me, I think it makes it very clear that we need something bold, visionary, and truly transformative to actually meet this moment, or else the voters won't pass the next ballot measure. And so, we do need a ballot measure that can speak to all the needs and really take into consideration all the cities in this region. But I am hopeful that we can find common needs and figuring out important ways to move forward. I think we all want to be connected to work, to family, to neighborhoods. I agree with you that we need to make sure that there are all those options of modalities. I think that's really important. But I look forward to working with you and also my colleagues to figure out what that ballot measure may look like, right? It's failed 3 times because the voters have sent us a message that we need to come back with something better. And so I do think that whatever we come up with, it has to be bold and transformative, or else we're going to be in a really tough situation, right? And so, again, just thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Mayor Singh Allen.
I did want to highlight one of your particular slides as it related to improvements on the bus routes. That's a conversation we're having at SAC-RT, and it's something that my community in Elk Grove is also very interested in, as opposed to just investing and expanding infrastructure, improving the routes that exist and increasing those routes, as opposed to just expanding. So these are important conversations, but I did want to highlight one of your slides that I did recognize that is where I think that there is some common ground on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Director Talamantes.
Thank you, Chair. So I live in South Natomas, and I don't ride a bike to work because I don't feel like it's safe enough. And a lot of the outside of the urban core, it's the reality that we are so car dependent. And I just want to echo Member Rosario's comments on when you have new housing developments coming online, how you can get bus rapid transit and really work with local TMAs to make sure that people can get to and from work, carpooling and small shuttles and buses and stuff. So I just want to echo her comments. And I also want to say, the first investment that we need to do is our roads. People are tired of potholes. People want to see resurfacing on our streets. I can tell you the number of emails I get every day asking for road resurfacing, and I know how much it costs, millions and millions of dollars to be able to do that. But then you have to do that so that people can be able to ride their bikes and not get their tires popped. And then after you do that, you must invest in rapid transit. We must do that. That's the most important thing that we can do, so that once we make that one-time investment on our roads, we get the buses so that people stop. You have 40 less cars driving down Northgate, and that road then can last for a longer amount of time. And so I just really want to highlight that in your PowerPoint, and that I'm 100% on board with the investments in our roads, investments in rapid transit, so we can make them last longer and really have a plan, kind of like Member Vang said. Voters have denied us this because they're not seeing our taxpayer dollars hard at work. Not enough. And I think we've been doing a better job saying, hey, this was paid for by Measure A with the signage and the social media. I think that's a start and something we're going to continue to do. But I'm looking forward to hearing back on the committee on where we're at on this ballot initiative, because I have been asked about it. And I'm like, well, I know that there's a committee and we're working on it, but we're going to have to come out full force, united on this front, to be able to make sure that we have key initiative like transportation projects here.
All right, thank you very much. I don't have any directors left in the queue. I'll just offer one observation, one thought, and maybe one challenge. I think you've heard from us that I think, like SAC moves, choice is important to us, and you're hearing, especially from some of the more suburban representatives up at the dais, that part of that choice, necessarily involves vehicles. It doesn't mean that you're hearing from us any kind of defensive or seeing any kind of defensive posture necessarily in support of car-only transportation, but I think you are seeing agreement that whatever we intend to do very intentionally when it comes to another ballot measure, we have to be very careful to listen to some of the polling and the survey products about where voters see themselves in that choice spectrum. And as it relates to one of those alternatives, walking, again, I'm going to come back into walking since I'm very committed to that right now and will continue to be, I think, in the foreseeable future, is that I would challenge everyone to try and walk to a destination you would otherwise use a vehicle for. There's kind of an interesting psychology that I've kind of experienced for myself in terms of distance and how you perceive distance. And I would just say that in many instances, a destination that you would otherwise drive to but you choose to walk to is going to perhaps seem much shorter, both temporally in terms of the time that it takes and the physical distance. You just try it as an experiment when you have an opportunity. For instance, I've walked from far north in Thomas, closer to the airport than downtown, all the way to downtown. And it takes a while, but it's not as far as people might think. Yeah. And I'm not suggesting that Mayor Singh Allen is going to be walking from Elk Grove to her meetings downtown in the near future, but
the stilettos won't allow it.
But
I'll pick you up.
But again, we all want to thank you for clearly expressing SACMOVE's priorities and what your agenda is as an active advocacy in our organization here in our community, and we appreciate your participation and ongoing partnership as we collectively come to terms with what we all hope to be a successful ballot measure in the future. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. All right. We do have public speakers on this item. So I want to invite first Bassem Ibrahim. And following Mr. Ibrahim will be Steve Cohn.
Do I go here or?
Yeah, if you can bring the microphones in both and stand between them.
Test.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. In their presentation, there were a lot of points that really did resonate with me. Mainly fixing things first before we plan on expanding. Mainly because, well, the more lanes we have, it's more liability. We have to pay more. And if we don't fix those roads, then we get potholes and more lane equal more pothole because it costs more to fix. And then along with that, our public transportation can reduce the amount of lanes we need if we set it up right. And by that I mean, we just need safe, effective routes to transit. Like they said, we needed safe routes to transit. But we also need easy access to our public transportation. Really to reduce our said car dependency. I mean, if you look at suburbs, they are pretty, they're like a maze. But a good thing about them is they do have cul-de-sacs, which are usually separated by like a small distance. So maybe you could like build a bike trail or something to connect those two over like between some houses. I don't know. That's a suggestion. But that could reduce our car dependency, get more people to use public transportation, which will not only make things better for them because they wouldn't have to pay as much for having a car, maintenance, gas, insurance, registration, the list goes on. But it also helps drivers because now there's less cars on the road. There's less traffic all of a sudden. So by funding more public transportation, we not only help our transit riders, we help the drivers too. So even if you live in like the suburb, you're still being helped by this. It's a win-win for everyone. And yeah, that's thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. All right, next up, no stranger to these chambers. Welcome back, Mr. Kahn.
Yes, great to be here. Chair Cerna, members of the board. Does this mic also
Yeah, you
work?
can,
Okay.
Steve, you can stand between the two mics, and that'll just, that's,
Yeah, I'm not used to this.
there you go.
Of the
And we'll try and zoom in on that a little bit.
At any rate, I wanted to take this discussion, sort of supplement just by getting down to the bottom line of categories of spending. So SMART, which I'm president of the board, is a incorporated nonprofit, a 501c3, so we don't engage in political activities. We're a charitable organization, educational. But we very strongly support transit and smart growth. We're trying to create here in the Sacramento region something similar to what Spur has done in the Bay Area. So, marry smart growth with transit and bike and ped. What this chart shows is a comparison of the different measures going back to 2004. And I basically reduced it to 4 categories. So there's a little rounding that goes on. So they may not all add up to exactly 100% because each measure had a little different way to characterize different measures or different projects. But as you can see, 2004, which passed, by the way, by over 70%, did have more transit spending than the 2020-2022 measures. The 2020, of course, never went on the ballot, but the 2022 measure, the so-called citizens measure, was very similar to what STA adopted in 2020 and had to take off because of the pandemic. What isn't shown was the 2016 measure, which failed, was very similar to 2020 with actually a little bit different percentages, but very close to the 2020. What I now show you on the left-hand side, my left-hand side, is the what a 45-50-10 measure could look like, where you put 50% transit, 40% local roads, 0 for highways, and then take what would have gone to highways, put more into housing infrastructure, air quality, economic development, projects that meet a lot of our needs, as well as the American River Parkway, other regional mobility needs. So innovation is kind of a generic category for that. I think it's fair to test all of these percentages in terms of your polling. I hope it hasn't been done yet. You still have the opportunity to incorporate some of these concepts so we can see what the public supports. But we do know they did not support that 2020-2022 measure. In fact, they couldn't even get 45%. So we know that didn't work. So let's be practical in terms of what can work, but also what we need for the next 40 years. I think some good points were raised about highways and the need for highways. We're not saying you shouldn't fund highways. We're saying this particular fund, this new Measure A, needs to focus on priorities that have been set aside in the past. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Good to see you. Okay, our final speaker on this item is Troy Wilkinson.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate and want to echo the previous speakers. particularly the mentality of this being a win-win situation for both highways, drivers, as well as people who are car light or carless, such as I am. I think we see a lot of, at least online, rancor regarding the construction happening on the freeways currently, and there's a lot of, I think, a sentiment that the improvements that are being made there, at least right now, are causing a lot of difficulties for drivers. And I would caution against trying to use the measure to incorporate that much in support of additional highways, infrastructure, and of that sort, almost solely because, in my experience, there's plenty of people who are really excited about infrastructure, really excited about transportation, active transportation, but sour on the idea of voting for something that's going to continually give more money to what has already been supported to an amazing degree, the driving infrastructure of the United States. And so we've, it's not even a, 50-50, oh, which one should we choose? Right now, we have a society in which it's, I would say, almost 100% driver-focused, at least particularly in somewhere like Sacramento. And so supporting something else is a small piece of bread that can be offered as opposed to what we currently have, which is really very minuscule rations for the people who don't have cars and don't have that type of transportation. I currently am carless. My spouse does not have a license. She recently immigrated to the United States and is afraid. Where she's from and where we met wasn't car dependent as much, and there were alternative modes such as e-bikes, e-scooters that can be worked with, and I think shouldn't be, I didn't get the sense that it was a barrier when you brought the e-scooters up.
Safety issue.
Yeah, safety issue, right? But it definitely, I think, is, cars are a huge safety issue in many instances. And I have a coworker whose son recently passed away in a car accident. The situation and the details obviously matter a hell of a lot regarding that stuff, but important nonetheless to prioritize safer modes of transportation. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the speakers for contributing to the discussion this afternoon. Director Dickinson.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted, as a point of clarification, I assume it was Steve distributed a little information piece on behalf of SMART, which lists the board of directors and includes me, but I am no longer a member of the board of directors. So just for the record.
Let the record show.
Let the record show.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good.
Yeah.
Before we get to the executive director's report, I just want to impart a few brief thoughts here. I think it's fantastic that we have so many transportation and transit advocates here in our region and our county. I think to a person, everyone that sits up here, whether you're a member of a board of supervisors or you're a municipal representative, I think we all have very strong feelings, and we're passionate about equity and making sure that, again, going back to the theme of choice, that is going to be at the forefront of what we eventually offer the voters and our constituents. But I do think sometimes we have to back away a little bit from simply narrowing the discussion to mode choice and having that be the principal part of our consideration when it comes to the complexion of a ballot measure. I think we also have to be very cognizant of the fact that we need to understand the condition of the economy at the time that the ballot measure will be considered. We have to understand what may also join that ballot, other measures. We need to understand in different parts of the county and the cities therein what the current tax burden is, and all that has to feed into, again, a very deliberative consideration of something that we all want to see succeed. There's been plenty of mention this afternoon about the times where the measure has failed, and none of us have the appetite to see that happen again. So I know that with SAC Move's help and SMART and others, we'll get there, and we need you. We can't simply, work in a vacuum. And having you share what you've shared this afternoon is very welcome, and we look forward to continuing the discussion. So thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item number 11 is the Executive Director's Report.
All right.
Yeah, I'll do a quick Executive Director's Report. So a little bit on the legislative update. So Assembly Bill 1223, which is the bill that this board authorized in November 2024 to move forward with, which gives us the ability, among many things, to have some geographic flexibility on a future sales tax measure. That bill was passed by both the Senate and the Assembly floor, is now on the governor's desk. We're waiting. We're hoping he's going to sign it soon, right? Hopefully mid-October. We'll get a signature. He's had it for a week, maybe it'll be early October. So I reached out to a few agencies who asked for some letters of support. We think it will be signed by the governor. We had a really wonderful conversation in the last board meeting about the I Street Bridge, as you might remember. So we had actually envisioned probably a lighter version of an MOU coming back to this meeting. But, there was a lot of good comments and good direction, and so we're taking a little bit longer than we anticipated to try to make sure we're addressing all the concerns we heard. We are hopeful that it's going to come back in October. But if I think we have to get the City of Sacramento and STA, at least at a staff level, when considering both our bond counsel, our legal counsel, our financial counsel, all on the same page. So we're shooting for October, but if it has to be, it'll be November. I just wanted to get an update on that. So we have a lot going on the next couple of meetings, October and November. I just want everybody to know that. So, and some of the items it's a little bit fluid on. So October might be a little light. If so, that means November is going to have a lot on it. So right now, from October standpoint, we do our annual debt review. As part of that, we are trying to bring that back, the I Street Bridge financing, back in October. We want to give an update on the legislation because hopefully by October we'll know if that's signed, and we can talk through how that sort of evolved and where we're currently at with that legislation. There's some sort of some changes that occurred. I think they're fairly minor, but I want to make sure the board's fully aware of that. Let's see. So November has a lot on it. So November, we were planning for a recommendation from the Future Transportation Funding Subcommittee on what to do next. But we're sort of in limbo because we're waiting on this Assembly bill. We're waiting on some survey results. So that could get moved. The VMT mitigation strategy, we've had those workshops. That should come back in November as well with, I think, a recommendation, a high-level recommendation. And then we have an award of our new finance, we call it the Enterprise Resource Planning or accounting system. We have the annual financial audit that we do. And then we usually do some minor budget amendments to sort of make sure things are corrected to align with the actual spending. So we'll have a busy October and November. Thanks very much.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Busey. Any questions for our Executive Director? Supervisor Rodriguez? No. Okay. All right, very good. All right, our final item this afternoon then are comments and reports from authority members. Any?
We at CARTA discussed revenue waterfalls and how it will land, and that's about it.
All right, very good. Any others? All right, then if there is no further business before this board, we stand adjourned.